I have a number of questions coming to you now, so I'm going to quickly bring that up. Why didn't the smart borrowing policy save us from the financial mess in which, let me read the full thing here, which we are in now? You didn't complete.
Can we take it one after the smart borrowing achieved results? I refer, the questioner to page 50 or 52 of the 2019 budget. I don't know about the 2020. And he will see that the rate at which we were accumulating debt started dropping from 2013. There's a graph there. So you can Google it. The rate at which we accumulated debt started dropping. And it started going up only, from end of 2017. And it is still going up. Now, that is because if you take the debt to GDP ratio, even rebase, at the end of 2016, and you see the debt management report again, you will see that the debt to GDP ratio at the end of 2016 is now lower than the debt to GDP ratio at the end of 2018. The minister did not give the ratio at the end of 2019.
You mean
or
the debt
potentially
to GDP
the debt to GDP ratio.
Of course, we are not at the end of 2019.
Yes, of course. What I'm saying is that the last one we had was up to July, which I have seen is up to July. And I'm saying that by then we were at 59 point something as compared to 56 point. So yes, it did. The smart borrowing did achieve. As I said, the smart borrowing.
We were not accruing debt at as much as
at
we
the
would
pace.
have.
Yes, the policies we are putting. Let me give you one example. When we created the sinking fund, we said the oil revenue is new, right? We were having a handle on deficits, right? So why don't we tackle debt? So we created a sinking fund. And as I said earlier, I don't want to repeat myself, he was listening. We used 550 million, for example, to pay off the first sovereign bond. That itself is a drop. If you refinanced it, it would have remained on your books. But by saying that we have a new oil revenue, right, and you pay it, it contributed to the drop. We have issued more bonds. We have not taken off, any bond to date. We have refinanced and whatever, but we're also doing refinancing. So I suggest to the, question, that we were. Another model which we implemented is Terminal 3, and that's the self-financing. Terminal 3 is modeled on airport tax. That is the revenue from the project paying for itself, so that we don't put it on public debt. And the same thing with MPS. In fact, the same principle, underlying KJTR market. So yes, I can say confidently that, it was yielding results.
Did I hear the Honorable Seth Terkper say that attempting to construct a 200-day schools was equivalent to free SHS? He should come again because the amounts going into the funding of free SHS of 1 year could have been used to construct all the 200 schools. They only managed to complete.
But you don't bring things. Bring things to a stop. You don't bring things to a stop. The system is running.
But have things been brought to a stop? Because we know that 27 schools have been built.
No, I'm saying that
since 2017.
No, he was referring to our administration. Things have not been brought to a stop. I made that point. You remember I said that things didn't come to a stop at the end of 2016, and it won't come to a stop. But when you are implementing reforms, you have to continue with what you are doing. So what I'm saying is that incrementally, there would have been more schools. There would have been more schools. Exactly, yes. That's the point I was making.
Why did we run to the IMF during your... I wanted to get the exact... But the question was essentially, why did we have to go to the IMF in your time if there was superior management?
You have to be pragmatic when you are managing an economy. And let me put this question in context. You have to be pragmatic when you are managing economy. Remember, when I became minister, we had exited the IMF program under my former boss. The expectation was that we would go into what we call the policy support instrument model, which is what Kenya, Rwanda, and other countries are moving on to, the middle-income countries in Africa. Now, that explains the homegrown policy, if you remember, right? Well, then we had single spine, arrears, coming in, if you remember, 70% of your tax revenue, was paying single spine. We put the figures out. We went to who? We were very open about it, right? And then the budget became tighter. And all of a sudden, the development partners started withholding, financing for the budget. So you couldn't jump into a new model, defiantly and say that we are not doing an IMF program. That's how we initiated it. And remember, we did Senchi. And the conclusion from Senchi, from eminent people who were, I don't want to be personal, but the eminent people, the conclusion was that we should do a fund program. Right? Yes, because, yes, and that is the context. That's the context in which we went into a fund program. So I think it is often, it's oversimplified. And remember, another factor, we had one word, doomsday, right, which explained away all the issues we're having with gas supply from Nigeria, which is part of the problem with VRA and the banks, and we did ESLA to do the first refinancing. So I think that, we are doing ourselves a certain injustice, not looking at the conditions at the time. So I'm not going to regret that we went to, the IMF, because we attempted, under the homegrown policy, to do a policy support instrument. Let me explain. Simply means that, IMF will definitely come and do Article 4. IMF has just finished Article 4 and the post-program, and they are going to issue their report. You are a member of the IMF. IMF will come and be evaluating, and so if you are accumulating debt in the energy sector, you are accumulating debt, teachers are not being paid, arrears and all that, you would definitely have to report those.
But would you say that the finance minister and this administration has done well in exiting Ghana from the IMF program? This is Ghana's first post-IMF budget in years.
No, we exited. Look, the end of every program. Wait a minute. Let me make a distinction. We are not, it's not like Brexit. You are not leaving the EU. You are not leaving the IMF.
You are leaving the IMF program.
Yes.
The ECF is over.
Fine. Yeah, that's my point. Yes. But in that regard, the end of every IMF program is therefore an exit. By definition.
Okay. So
no, that's what I'm saying.
I get you.
And I'm saying that, yes. So you can say that under my former boss, Minister Dufo, right, we exited the program. Right? It's the economic conditions that puts you. So my wish, right, is yes, fine. Just as we wanted to do with the homegrown policy, that we wouldn't go back to the IMF program. But my caution is this, that you are not living like the EU, you are not leaving the IMF. You remain a member of the IMF. And under Article 4 and other articles of you have to open those books. And when you open those books, the markets will know how you are performing. Development partners will know how you are performing. The very factors that drive you. And that's why I'm saying that it is important that, with 3 additional oil fields and with the revenues that's why I'm focusing on this. Yes, we have a good opportunity, not to go back to an IMF program. Yeah, but we would have done an intermediate step of doing a PSI or something. That was our policy, to do a PSI. A PSI means that was going to...
Initiative.
No, not that.
Not that
it means a policy support instrument, which is a type of IMF program. And there, like the budget has just been read, the macroeconomic indicators, real estate sector, you submit it to the fund. You have a discussion with them. And you say, this is our policy. This is how we want to manage, the economy. So when you come and do surveillance, when you come and do everything, you are assessing us based on, the right. And as a member of the fund, we reserve the right to come and ask, because the IMF is a central bank for developing countries. Because we are not we don't have a Fed. Our central bank is not as strong.
I understand.
Yes.
You see, the reason why, and to be candid, the reason why the finance minister will raise something like this is, remember when this government came to power, they said that we were far behind in the program, we had not met a number of our benchmarks, so they had to actually extend the program. Have
you looked at the 3 reviews that they did? Have you looked at the waivers that they got?
We can do a program reviews before this government came to come.
After they criticized us, the reviews and whatever, have you looked at the number of waivers that were granted?
But weren't those waivers granted because of the pace of the program before
and I'm
they
saying
came
that
to power?
have you looked at the waivers? I'm saying that they also
like
got significant waivers. They got waivers, right?
Which is why I'm asking, were they not granted because of the state of the program when they came to power?
You shouldn't be getting a waiver when I'm doing one, or I'm sorry to be going back to that. When the power crisis, when you have invested, in Echabo, You know, when you have 3 oil fields, when you have other, I'm sorry to be going back to that, when you have a better conditions, you should be getting waivers. You don't compare yourself to, the period before. Yes, that's the point I'm making.
Please
but
ask
let me make
your point.
let me make a position clear that, it is a wish of every, like the Asian tigers, and we should have the African lions who should have a program and say for once that we can manage our affairs, right? Bet like Greece, like Portugal, like Ireland, remember the pigs, Spain. Who would have thought that these advanced countries would have gone to the IMF when the financial crisis struck? And that is my point. That is the defiance I'm talking about. That the defiance may remove a lever for developing countries until our central bank is in a position, like the Fed,
right.
Yes. And so I'm saying that even the
so
advanced
some independence, like a sense of independence is what you're
independence, but as a member, you have the right to draw. That's why we talk about the going back to draw on the resources, which you are, as a matter of right, because you are a member, to do corrections, like the temporary taxes that we are talking about. And that is what the Asian tigers, and when we talk about some of the Asian tigers, they used to go to the IMF, until the Latin American crisis and the Asian crisis back in the 80s and whatever, through Asian Development Bank, hopefully through African Development Bank, our lions would also be able to manage effectively, and put the IMF program, but having it, as a caution that you can always go back, particularly for Forex.
Right. Yes. Seth Terkper is our guest this afternoon on The Pulse on JoyNews. We take another quick breather. When we come back, there's more. Stay with us.